Now, Stewart Rhodes is the founder and president of Oath Keepers, and he also is a constitutional lawyer. I'm not going to go over his entire bio, but he's won awards for the reports he's done at Yale Law School for solving the puzzle of enemy combatant status, which he wrote many years before this was even a news item. He's worked for Congressman Ron Paul as well and his congressional staff. He's written for SWAT magazine. He's got like a 5-page bio, so I'm not going to go over the whole thing here. He was also in the Army till he was medically retired in a paratrooping night exercise, I believe it was, jump. And he joins us to go over this for the next 45 minutes. Then we'll get into the hurricane and could that affect the election and a bunch of other economic news and cover the latest poll numbers. But, Stewart, you know, I kind of threw out a couple different issues there, and I'll interrupt you a few times to actually give the Army manual numbers for people for the civilian inmate labor camp programs, for the re-education camps, and the MIAC and Homeland Security reports. While you're talking, I'm going to be searching it up myself, showing TV viewers and telling radio listeners how to pull it up themselves. It's important I don't just hold it up and say the number. I'm going to show people while you're talking. I'm going to be searching and showing people with it up on screen, live time, so they can see this for themselves. But you've got contacts everywhere in the military, in the police. We do as well, but you do this full time. They're all saying, look for something big to happen soon. Now, the globalists are always doing that to get everybody on edge. So when they finally do drop the hammer, everybody almost expects it. We understand that's part of the psychology, but we do need to be made aware of this. Where should we start in this whole buildup, the Army manuals that have come out, the preppers being stranded? I've got another report here. Former cricket captain turned politician, detained and interrogated over drone views by U.S. immigration. I guess it's Imran Khan. He's very pro-Western, lived in England most of his life, probably going to be the new Pakistani president. And they pulled him off a flight and said, we don't like the fact that you're campaigning against us bombing indiscriminately with drones. So they're now using the airports. They're now using this as the political, roundup point, just like Nazi Germany used the train stations as their way to grab people. And now with face scans, there's nowhere to run. Stewart Rhodes of oathkeepers.org, thank you for joining us.
Well, it's the same thing that happened during the Bush administration. Remember back then it was leftist journalists who would be on the no-fly list. Now it's swung a different direction now. Now you can say, well, it's kind of swung on the right wing, but it's not just that. It's just kind of like the metastasizing of the national security state. It is a cancer that is growing and starting to eat us. And so one of the two things is going to happen. It's going to kill the host, kill America, or we'll have to kill it. And, the preppers being targeted, what is a prepper except a person who's awake and aware and takes personal responsibility for themselves and their families? I see them as being interchangeable with Ron Paul people, interchangeable with veterans, interchangeable with just traditional Americans who believe in taking care of themselves, who are not just, sitting in front of the boob tube all day and dumbed down. And so it's the targeting, really, it's the targeting and the attempt to crush the traditional American spirit. They want you to be subservient. They want you to be just go shop and do what you're told and go to work and don't question the two-party system. If you step outside those bounds at all, they'll start assigning one label or another to you. Right-wing extremist, prepper, just the latest version of it. Whatever it is, it's the same target audience, though, is the people that are going to either be able to resist or those who are going to be able to ride out whatever comes down.
And just to add, they want us to shut up and go quietly into the night while they build FEMA camps, while they deindustrialize the country, while they harass rural communities and set up the governor commission, the governor council that circumnavigates the states and the 10th Amendment. I mean, it's all happening. Anyone who knows history, as you do, as an award-winning lawyer, who's written on the subject of political papers, when you know history, you know the path we're going down. I mean, this is definitely tyranny.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the same thing that happened in Nazi Germany or also happened in Stalinist Russia. And in Russia, it was the independent farmers, the kulaks, who had to be crushed. For Stalin to really take over, he had to take out any resistance. And because they could grow their own food and their own livestock, and they were independent landowners, they were a threat to his power. He wanted them completely subservient, so he confiscated their crops and starved them.
What do you make of this new case?
of the National Guardsman. I watched that, and he strikes me as very credible. I know you guys said you vetted him, and so I'm going to take that as being accurate. I think what's probably going on there is one of two things. Either his command has stepped out ahead in some ways and gone there, gone a little bit further down the same logical path, or this is just the first inkling of the meme coming down from above. I talked to other National Guardsmen. They have not heard anything about this, but I did find it credible, and I'm not surprised. Like I said.
Well, just to be clear, I was going to get to that in the next segment. When I said this latest case, I want to get back into the prepper confirming, that he wasn't allowed to fly for 6 days because he was a prepper, but I was going to get into that next. Yes, this National Guardsman, who even during the breaks, was out there at the a repair area, had, his officer walking around giving him orders because he'd gone too far on his lunch. He sent us all his documents, all the info. And that's what we see in this particular order. Will you guys put the resettlement document up there so I can give people the Army regulation number? If folks go to FM 3-39.40, internment and resettlement operations, February 2010, we just got this 4 months ago. You can go to army.mil and find this. It's the plan to put you in a, quote, re-education camp. So we're going to get Stewart Rhodes' take on that, get his take on why they're going after the preppers and other intel he's getting from police and military across the United States. Stay with us.
While we fight to retain our liberty, while we fight to expose globalism, we have to realize we're talking about a very powerful combination of power.
Renowned author and expert Joel Skousen breaks down the globalist plan to shut down America and stage a new world war.
In one day, America will go from day to night. And if you haven't prepared in advance, there's not enough time to prepare in 24 hours, even if you saw it that early.
Coming to the InfoWar in November is our new documentary film presentation.
Strategic relocation is a systematic way to think strategically in the future about how do I safeguard.
Joel Skousen, Strategic Relocation.
The freeways are going to be crowded, they're going to run out of gasoline, they're going to run out of food, and then they're going to start to go north and south of those freeways.
Joel Skousen is renowned as one of the world's foremost experts in strategic relocation and the securing of your home.
We talk about natural disasters, the health environment, we talk about pollution, the water quality. My personal experience about being in every one of these states.
Government is digging in for the organized, incremental collapse of society and world war.
The U.S. isn't building huge underground bases and bunkers because of some terrorist threat. They know that a massive nuclear attack is coming. They want that attack to come. Most people won't even be ready and won't be able to get out of town when any of these nuclear weapons fall, because there'll be absolute panic.
There is no preparedness without strategy.
What I tell people is that you do have time. Prepare wisely in advance.
This Christmas, give the gift of preparedness. Strategic Relocation, the film, with Joel Skousen and Alex Jones. Listen, recap with a report here before we get back into preppers and, our National Guard source about saying preppers will be treated as terrorists and hunted down. I've been to urban warfare drills where that's basically what they were doing a decade ago. They just didn't call them preppers, guys in John Deere caps and overalls. They trained to kill your grandpa, basically. You've witnessed that. You know that's going on. But just in this 7-8 minutes we've got before we start the next hour, you've got the floor. Recap the different papers coming out of the war colleges about how the Tea Party is going to link up with Al-Qaeda. I mean, Benedict Arnold types bizarreness. All, if you had 6, 7, 8 minutes just to talk to millions of people and give them a report, which you are talking to millions, what would you say to them? Stewart Rhodes, founder of oathkeepers.org.
Well, I would say that the U.S. government is now telling you that you should take them at face value. They're telling you who their future military opponent is. And it is the general right. It's in particular the constitutionalist right, the Barry Goldwater conservatives, the Ron Paul supporters, the Chuck Baldwin supporters. They've been telling you this for years, so you should believe them. And actually, they're correct. We are their future military opponents because they're going down the same exact road that Nazi Germany went down or Stalinist Russia, except that they're trying to do it here in America. And the difference is there's going to be a fight. And unless they were to, I don't think they're going to back off. I don't think we have a political solution any longer. We're heading towards a fight. And so all we're really doing right now is shaping the future battle space. And within Oath Keepers, our way of doing that is to reach out to as many of the current serving military, in particular, and also police officers, sheriffs especially, and trying to get them on our side. And if we get enough of them, then we can win in a very peaceful way. Like 1989 East Germany, when the wall fell after 3 days because the East German military simply refused to fire on their fellow citizens. And then the other big equation in it is, of course, what the American people do. The more resilient you are, the more prepared you are, the better off you're going to be. And which is why they are beginning to also target preppers. They fear the current serving doing the right thing. They fear veterans. And they also fear all prepared Americans who are able to be self-sufficient, just like the kulaks were in Russia. Anybody can grow their own food and shelter themselves even when the power's out. They are somebody who is a threat to the plans of the elites. They want us absolutely destitute when the collapse comes, when economic collapse hits. They want us to be at their mercy and be clamoring for the FEMA bracelets and the FEMA debit cards, or even the little FEMA chip in your arm, or the Northcom versions of it.
And the forced inoculations, they admit they're trained for that.
They want you to be totally subservient. So, of course, anybody who doesn't do those things, if you want to know what to be doing, look at the things they fear. They fear people who are prepared. They fear gun owners. They fear people. They don't want you going and forming communities and forming barter networks.
They hate Christians, real Christians.
Right. They don't want you. I mean, anything that challenges their rule, anybody who has allegiance to something other than them, they want you to be totally subservient to the political system as it is right now.
That's why they hate the family.
Right. They don't want a family, allegiance and loyalty. They don't want loyalty to they don't want faith loyalty to your God. They don't want you to have loyalty to the U.S. Constitution or to the Founders Republic. They want loyalty to the government official. As outside the Constitution and illegitimate as they are, they want you to have loyalty to them. And they want you to be destitute and desperate so you'll give up your rights, which is what people do throughout history. It's a constant pattern throughout history that in crisis, in wartime, is when you give up your rights. And so we're heading into a period of crisis economically. And it's coming, and I think Skousen's absolutely correct. I think that guys like Rawls, who have been talking about the American Redoubt, I think that they're correct also. You need to get to, if you can't get to, the Rocky Mountain West, you should at least get out of the cities. And like you did, you went to the Hill Country in Texas, which is a pretty awesome place. A lot of good people out there. It goes, it's kind of like that old Hank Williams Jr. song, "A Country Boy Can't Survive," and that's no joke. And if you get outside the cities, you get back to a real.
And that's what Agenda 21 is. I've got to interrupt you because everything you're saying is making me just burn with understanding. I got awake because as a child, there were military books and history books everywhere. And I thought they were entertaining to read history because, it was action every page. Why read fiction when you have to read to the end of the book to hear about battles when every page was a battle? And I've studied modern warfare. I've studied siege for 5,000 years, the oldest form of total war. They're setting us up for siege. They're setting you up like a foreign occupier would do. And, of course, anybody who's self-sufficient is the enemy. Anybody loyal to the real America is the enemy. I'm getting chills here, Stewart. I mean, it's so real. Listen, I'm 95% confirmed that I'm finding NSA substations all over Austin and I mean, I've confirmed their government data mining operations. I mean, I sent reporters down to the big NSA base in San Antonio just a few weeks ago, and the cops came up and threatened them and said, "You can't film in America." And we said, "Yes, we can." So they backed off when they've taken the film from the San Antonio Express news people. We at least knew our rights and handed them, basically notice of a lawsuit and the fact of the NSA's lawsuits. But the point is, I mean, this is everywhere. Like you said, a cancer, Stewart. This is giant, and this is what you do when you're setting up an occupying takeover grid. I hope people understand this is not some nanny state that wants full control because it wants to take care of us. These are horrible globalists.
Right. I mean, it's like another level above what happened post-World War II with the growth of the national security state the growth of the CIA, the emergence of the CIA in the 50s and all that. Now it's turned inward, and it's increasing its pace exponentially.
Well, they've said, why don't we just take over the whole economy and everything else and take over companies and arrest whoever we want?
Right. And don't you have a new CIA domestic headquarters in Denver?
Yes.
Isn't that where they're building the new one? So what is that? Folks are probably thinking to themselves, I never knew the CIA was ever used internally in the first place, and now they're doing it wide open. And so, what they're really doing is everything they've done overseas, all the manipulations and the coups and the assassinations they've done overseas for decades, they are now doing to the United States and to the American people. They're bringing war home. It's all been, whatever's been done in Iraq and Afghanistan or in the past in other countries will be done here. So the question is what do we do about it? And I think what we have to realize is where we are, where we're headed, and then get ready ourselves. They're getting ready. We need to get ready too. So people need to set aside their fear. They need to step out and get to know their neighbors. They need to go down to local veterans hall. And one thing I recommend you do more than anything else is get with your local veterans in your VFW hall, American Legion, or Marine Corps League, and wake them up, because that's a pool right there of people in your community who could help no matter what happens.
And a lot of them won't listen up front, but when all this keeps happening, they're going to wake up later.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
Okay, we've got Stewart Rhodes, founder of Oath Keepers, patriot, constitutional lawyer, taught his class at Yale. I know he wrote award-winning papers there. And the point is that he is our guest here, and I wish he was wrong. Every time he's on, it really freaks me out because I know he's right. I study this stuff constantly. Remember, I'm the guy that made Police State 2000. In 1999, I'm the guy that said the military's coming to get your guns because I went and saw them drill to confiscate guns in America. And then we saw it in Katrina. All of it is a battle test. All of it is conditioning. It's all laboratory tests. They call it that. It's shaping the future battle space. And whether it's MIT Magazine or stuff out of West Point, for 15 years, I have had countless contacts, and even had them on air, ROTC students at college being trained to be future officers, and they almost always train to fight militias and gun owners. They've been shaping this battle space for a long time. I think that's what Stewart was getting to about, don't think Mitt Romney's going to save you. And we're going to get into identifying 3 trends in far-right violence in the United States, what the Army's being taught, that the gun owners are evil. This is... USMA, EDU. We're going to be getting into that. This is a short segment here, though, Stewart, before we come back and get into all that. Tell us about Oath Keepers and how people can get involved with that. The awesome black caps you've got with Oath Keepers on it, how people can support you.
Well, the main point of Oath Keepers, as I said, is to do the best we can to get those in the ranks to understand their true loyalty to the American people and to our Constitution. And even more basic than that, to liberty itself. That's what our country is defined by. The American Revolution was fought for liberty, and everything after that was supposed to be to secure and further our freedom. And of course, we all know that's not the way it's worked out. But we want to bring them back to that core root of their duty and obligation and their identity. They're Americans first, not just obedient to whoever happens to be in the White House or who happens to be running the banks. And so their loyalty is to the Declaration of Independence and to liberty. And so if we can do that, we can achieve a stand down within the military. And we're not saying that we want them to sit on their hands and do nothing if we're invaded. If the UN comes in, of course we want them to fight. If it comes to a fight here in America, we'd like them to be on our side. But our dream would be to a mass peaceful stand down like happened in 1989 East Germany, where the East German military stepped aside and stayed out of it. And without their support, the Stasi secret police, as feared as they had been before, turned out to be, paper tigers. They could do nothing without the support of the military behind them, and they ran and hid because they were so outnumbered by the people.
Let's make no mistake. Let's make no mistake. What we're doing right now will affect history. This is not a game, folks. We're not up here saying this to scare you. How do you respond to that? People say, this is scary. No, it's good to know the facts and prepare for it. We believe you have courage, America. We believe you want to say no to this takeover. This is a real authoritarian, social engineer, globalist, sickos, psychologist-run, New World Order, control freak system. These are nasty people.
Right, and we should recognize reality. Like Patrick Henry said, it's better to know reality and then, or know the facts and provide for it than to delude yourself with false hope. Recognize how bad it is, but also don't give up. Understand that we are different. We are not Chinese peasants or Russian peasants. We are Americans, and we have a legacy and a history of fighting for freedom and resistance, and so we can do it. I think if I didn't believe that, I wouldn't even try to do what I've been doing, and you wouldn't either. We would just, I don't know what we would do. Who knows what we would do? But we know that there's a chance, and so what's going on now is, like we said before, in one interview, I believe you said that when there's crisis, there's a window that opens up, but it goes both ways. I think that's absolutely correct. We are in a moment of crisis in this country. When the window's opened, they want to shove through their total lockdown and total grid control society. We have to push back with what it is that makes us all Americans, which is our Declaration of Independence and our Bill of Rights and our own self-independence.
Exactly. People should pinch themselves if they're not fully awake yet. FEMA badmouths the founding fathers. They demonize people that believe in freedom. Welcome back. Second hour here. I'm going to give the number out so you can get a few calls into Stewart Rhodes. Only have time for 5 or 6, but we'll see who's able to get on air in the next segment. The toll-free number to join us if you have any questions about the martial law incremental takeover we see happening. It's 877-789-ALEX, 877-789-2539. And let's give first-time callers a chance, specifically on the National Guard going under Northcom, Brigade Homeland, TSA checkpoints on highways, the NSA admitting they spy on you illegally, just the absolute criminal lawlessness. They have street lights going up nationwide. I've confirmed they're putting some in here in Austin. I've got to go out and do the report with the IntelliStreet style design. There's a bunch of companies doing it where the street lights watch you and listen to you secretly, wired into the threat fusion centers. Folks, this is all for us. It was never for Al-Qaeda that works for the globalists. That's now admitted that Al-Qaeda works for NATO. They're using them against Syria and Libya, and then separately saying, oh, Obama didn't give enough, support to, to the CIA to protect the embassy staff, because the group they were paying for security are the ones that went and killed the ambassador, folks. I've got to give my rights up because of Al-Qaeda when the criminal government runs Al-Qaeda. Against the Serbs, against the Russians, against everybody, and they use them to take our rights. Stuart, briefly on that front, and then give people a briefing here, because a few times ago when you were on, I likened it to a cheesy Star Trek analogy. When the Klingon bird of prey has to decloak to fire, okay? And that's what happens historically. When the tyrants get ready to move, they've got to build up, they've got to roll out, and we can point it out before they try to clamp down, and then stop them if we build enough political mass and understanding so they can't sell it on their cover story. And I want listeners to understand the historical point we're at. The globalists admit, Brzezinski's new book, one of their master planners, that they are 7 to 10 years behind. So they're trying to accelerate it because they know worldwide people are waking up to them. The euro is now forming a world dictatorship, the core of it over the euro, and bragging about it. This is all happening. World governments being announced. And they can't have those of us that were right about this and have credibility out running around. They want to come arrest us. They're preparing for that in the Army manual I read earlier. But that shouldn't scare you. That shouldn't scare you because the NSA is spying on you. I'm going to go protest the NSA in San Antonio. As soon as I get the time, I'm going down there. Okay? I mean, major reporters have had their cameras taken for major newspapers. They didn't take ours because I had them give them the news article about the NSA losing a lawsuit. We're allowed to go show them illegally spying on us in America. You got to exercise these rights or lose them. Stuart, you've got the floor in the 10 minutes we got before we go to break and come back with some calls. Give people the briefing. Tell them what they're teaching the military, what's happening at Northcom. Give them a breakdown on the force structure and the treasonous conversion of the military into a domestic Gestapo force.
Well, we already saw the article by Colonel Benson out at Leavenworth, who is no small fry. He's one of the major instructors there at Leavenworth, where he called the Tea Party future military opponent of the U.S. military for domestic deployment. And now we also have added to that, we have the Combating Terrorism Center, at West Point, and there's an article published there identifying 3 trends in far-right violence in the United States by R.L. Perlinger, and he's the director of that center at West Point. And so these are just, like I said before, they're telling you right out in the open who their future political or future military opponents are. And of course, this article from West Point lumps what they call the anti-federalists. He calls us anti-federalists. It's kind of a new term they're applying now, hearkening back to the anti-federalists who opposed the Constitution back in 1787 or 1789. He calls these anti-federalists. Then the next wing of supposed right-wing violence is racism, the racist trend, and then he has one more, which is the religious trend or a Christian identity trend.
Oh wait, he also says in here, anybody can pull this up, West Point, he says that the Tea Party, what is it, in North Carolina, they predict will link up with Al-Qaeda. That is the most asinine thing I ever heard.
I missed that. Is that in there? I missed that.
There's several of these. We actually wrote an article about it at the time. I know they've written several, but yeah, no. I mean, they talk about, they talk about Paul Watson wrote about it. Go ahead.
Okay, so here's the big point, folks, is that the U.S. military is now within their own ranks, within the officer corps. They're doing much the same thing that's been going on within the police. The SPLC has infiltrated the police across the country and has been brainwashing them to believe that, if you believe in the Constitution, if you believe in natural rights, you believe in the autonomy of the individual, that you're somehow a potential cop killer. And as Alex has shown many times, they've got, running around calling the founding fathers terrorists, things like that. Well, now it's spread into the U.S. military. Which we knew was happening, but now they're, as you just said a minute ago, Alex, they're being much more upfront about it. The mask is coming off. They're doing it very overtly. And the reason is that they're running out of time. They need to brainwash as many of the military as they possibly can to see traditional conservative Americans or just, libertarian Americans, anybody who believes in freedom, gun owners, preppers, you name it. Anybody like that, they want to smear you and then lump you in with racist and lump you in with people who, they're either neo-Nazi or Christian identity.
If you don't like Obamacare, you're a racist. We've all heard this.
Right. So this is what's happening and being much more overt about it. And so I think that's a good sign. I think that it shows that they're so worried and so desperate to demonize us that they're pulling out all the stops. But I think it's too late. I think prepping has gone mainstream. I think that loving the Constitution's gone mainstream.
Guns have gone mainstream from used to sell a few 100,000 a month to 3, 4, 5 million a month. You're right. Look, they've lost our trust. I heard the Austin police chief on the radio Friday saying the people don't trust the government anymore and we've got to get their trust back. I mean, the system knows. Go ahead.
Exactly. And so that's why they're desperate. But it's too late. The cat's out of the bag. The idea of freedom, thanks to Ron Paul and thanks to the whole Ron Paul movement especially, the idea of freedom has grown exponentially in the population. And so now I would say there's about 20% of Americans who are pretty wide awake. But what I encourage them to do, though, is to not just be awake, but also be prepared.
Yes.
You need to get yourself squared away with your food, your water, your emergency power, emergency communications, especially important. You need to get networking with other people. The answer, as you said a little while ago, is not to cower in fear and try to hide. They want you to do that. Another part of why they're being so open is they want to chill you. They want you to be afraid of being identified as these things. Oh, I don't want that label on me. I don't want to be labeled a prepper. So I better just shut up and stay in my house.
Boy, it's having the opposite effect on everybody I know. I think a lot of it is I've run into these globalist minion engineers and people. They're psychologists, they're psych warfare people. They are so emasculated and chicken-necked and neurotic. They're attacking us with programming they think would work on them. They're smart, but not that smart. Their blind spot is they think we're like them.
No, you're right. I mean, they're kind of autistic in that sense, right? They're really brain smart, but they don't understand. They don't understand us. It's like a foreign alien species to them. They don't understand us. They don't really get us. And they think that what worked in other countries will work here, that what worked in East Germany will work here. And it's not working. All it does is piss us off. And so that's good. And so the attitude should be not to become afraid when you hear about all the stuff that's happening. The attitude should be righteous anger and then decide to do something about it. And what you need to do about it is we are in the lead up. It's like 1774, 1773. We're in a lead up to conflict. Get squared away like your forefathers did. They didn't just sit on their hands, nor do they just grab their musket and go out in the streets. got ready.
Oh, they engaged in the committees of correspondence, the Sons of Liberty, for 15 years before they hit the ground and exposed the enemy takeover.
And committees of safety and their militias, they got ready. And so in the modern context, that means, you know, forming groups with your neighbors, with your close friends. It also especially means getting together with the veterans in your community, forming a sheriff's posse, backing up a good sheriff. All the things we talk about on Oath Keepers and our sister site, you know, the Operation Sleeping Giant site, is what we encourage you to do. Focus on your preparedness first, then your security second, then your sound money and alternate currency and barter networks third.
Stay there, my friend. Stay there. We're going to come back and take some calls, and things are moving fast. Let's get Stewart Rhodes back on the next few weeks for like 2 hours to take calls during the week. Folks, this is it. I mean, this is real. We can beat these people if we will recognize the enemy operations. I just hope listeners understand here, if you're tuning in for the first time, this is not a game. Most Americans don't have any historical perspective anymore. It hasn't been taught. If you know basic history, this is like, you know, knowing what a grizzly bear looks like in Colorado, and you walk out on your back porch and there's a grizzly bear. I mean, it's a grizzly bear. Well, if you know history, this is tyranny. This is scary. It's real. And giving into it is what's dangerous. We've got to say, hey, you're wrong. You're out of control. And serving this will not help you. They want an authoritarian model because they say they don't want the free market system of prosperity. That makes you uppity. And they're using kind of a communist model to take over, even though it's really corporate fascists that sit above it. They want to make you dependent at the grassroots. They want to make you dependent at the grassroots so that you're dependent on their system. You're domesticated. And they want to use a shutdown of society mode to make you dependent. That is a classic communist model under Mao, under Lenin, under Stalin, under Fidel Castro. And believe me, as someone who studied political science, it freaks me out. You know, Stewart, after serving in the Army, graduated summa cum laude from the University of Nevada. Then he went on to graduate law school from Yale, where he won the top big award there at the law school, solving the puzzle of enemy combatant status before this was even discussed. He won Yale's Judge William E. Miller Prize for Best Paper on the Bill of Rights, and will continue. He also assisted teaching U.S. military history at Yale History Department. I want to jam in 4 or 5 calls here, Stuart, but with quick questions, callers, so don't thank us or anything. Let's just get right to your data. God bless you, so we can get to more of you. Stuart, as a military historian, you're not just not just a constitutional lawyer. Am I wrong in saying danger, Will Robinson, red alert? I mean, this is incredible.
No, and that's what that's what grabbed me back in 2001 and 2002 when I was doing my research in the wake of 9/11. Like I said, the laws of war are being brought home, and I can see it happening legally. And when they build something and they build the infrastructure, it's going to be used. So they built the American version of the Stasi. That's the NSA and the DHS. It's going to be used here at home on us, just like it was used overseas. When they build the infrastructure for NORTHCOM and for domestic deployment of the U.S. military under its own separate command, it's not under the Army, it's not under the Marine Corps. It's this new body, like a new branch of the military for domestic use. It's going to be used. And that's exactly why.
Not under your governor. I mean, they're circumventing everything. And then calling us anti-federalist when they're overthrowing the federal system.
Yeah, this is kind of ironic, because they're using the label applied to opponents of the Constitution to people who are trying to preserve the Constitution. Although the anti-federalists, like Patrick Henry, turned out to be right in the long run, frankly.
I guess they did. Okay, let's go ahead and go to a phone call here. Let's go to Daniel in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing, Alex?
Good, sir.
I had a statement for Stewart, if that's okay.
Yes, sir. And by the way, you live in a beautiful city. I was just there recently. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Hey, Stewart. My name's Daniel, and I'm a former United States Marine, and I know a thing or two about martial arts, fitness, and also the InfoWar. And I wanted to get your blessing to thread the Oath Keepers message with the InfoWars message and make my own little boot camp in Sherburne National Forest here in the Chapel.
Well, I mean, for him to openly give you some kind of thing, like he'd have to know who you are. Sir, just people ask, can I put your bumper sticker on my car? You go, folks. But I mean, he obviously can't certify what you're doing. Don't wait for orders from headquarters. Go to the sound of the guns. Thanks for the call. Stuart, comment.
Yeah, he can just write me at Oath Keepers through our contact there, and I'll take a look at what he's doing.
Let's go to...
People need to get squared away. I recommend, like I said, my recommendation is to focus on your veterans groups that already exist, rather than trying to start some new entity. Go to the veterans groups that are already
and
there.
do it all out in the open, mainstream.
Yeah.
We're the good guys. Creeping around, you'll run into infiltrators and troublemakers.
Right. Don't do anything you wouldn't want on the national news, because you're stronger that way. Be open and
listen.
upfront
I
about it.
stomp up to the NSA bases. I stomp up to the troops. I'm the guy fighting the takeover and the tyranny. We're the good guys. They see us like Godzilla in Tokyo, Stewart.
Yeah, definitely. And I do think, we do need to train, and you do need to pass your knowledge on. So I think you're right to do that. But my recommendation is to do it through your local VFW or Marine Corps League. Wake them
create
up.
an Appleseed group. People need basic rifle skills first. Operation Appleseed.
Well, if you got other skills you want to teach, by all means, go for it. Just be aware that you're going to have infiltrators. You're going to have a mole who's going to come in there and try to get you to talk about doing illegal stuff.
Yeah, they put a mole in it to act like what you're doing is bad. Let's go to another caller here. Caleb in Virginia. You're on the air with Stewart Rhodes. Go ahead.
Yeah, this I live in Fredericksburg. I don't know if you're aware of that, but that's right where the storm's going to be hitting.
Yes, sir.
And are you aware of the 100,000 National Guardsmen getting sent to the Northeast?
Yes, I am aware they're mobilizing and declaring mandatory evacuations in areas of New York City, which, I mean, how are they going to have an election if that's the case?
Yeah, like I said, I'd see it getting postponed, but I was calling, there's National Guardsmen everywhere in my town. Police officers on every street. It's crazy.
Well, that's when you're supposed to have them, though, is when you got a giant hurricane with a bunch of other storms coming together. Anything else? Any questions for Stewart?
That's it.
Thank you, sir. God bless. Stewart, what is your take briefly on the election?
Well, I think it's a dog and pony show, frankly. I don't think this is also kind of interesting. And this National Guardsman we talked to the other day, he said that they were briefed and told that if Obama loses, there's going to be rioting by Obama supporters. They're going to look at the preppers as the big threat, which is really kind of strange. It's like they're hedging their bet. Whichever way it goes, preppers going to be targeted. So this way they can go ahead and target preppers even if Obama loses. So it's like heads you lose, tails we win,
That's right. Don in West Virginia, first-time caller. You're on the air. Welcome.
Yes, sir.
West Texas, excuse me. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good to see you today. The storm-affected area, how far do you think the government will try to extend their authority outside that area or use this as a test run for what we're looking at?
Yeah, that's a great point. They use every disaster or problem as a reason to power grab. Look at Katrina. Stewart.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why, like the last caller, the answer is go out there and talk to those cops and talk to the National Guardsmen before the storm hits and say, look, guys, don't do what happened in Katrina. Do not go down that road. And you got to get out there and outreach to them now.
And by the way, as you proved and broke later, a lot of the Army actually said no. The media acted like the Army was happy to confiscate guns to sell the normalization of it. The truth is a lot of them said no.
And that did not make the news. That's right. And so don't take it for granted they'll do what they're told, but also make sure you go out there and talk to them. I mean, who knows what effect you could have. You going up there and talking to them saying, look, we're here to back you up and help you. Just don't try to disarm us or violate our rights. That can make a big difference to the guys on the ground and what they do.
That's right. The system says comply, do what you're told. They teach the clergy response teams to, the preachers that have been bought off as collaborators to tell everybody, do what you're told during the emergency. No, we're the head of the government. We obey the Constitution Bill of Rights, Romans 13. And they're actually twisting that and saying serve tyranny. Stewart Rhodes, I want to get you on soon about Operation Sleeping Giant. Thank you and God bless you during the weekday show soon. Coming up, we'll look at the storm with a meteorologist straight ahead. Stay with us. I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com, their site, oathkeepers.org. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the sites, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.